our experience on foramen magnum tumors, uh, both from the anterior and posterior. It will not be so exciting like Dr. Dugani's and Dr. Sushil Patkar's lecture, but I'll try to compete with them. Foramen magnum, by definition, is the region which arises, means any lesions in and around the lower clivus to C2 body. So any tumor from the lower clivus to C2 body are all tumors of foramen magnum. They can be located anteriorly, ventrally, or laterally, or posteriorly. So this is the clivus, and ventrally it's by the clivus, posteriorly by the rim of the foramen magnum. Laterally we have the occipital condyle and the jugular foramen with the jugular tubercle. Now there are many tumors like this which arise from the hypoglossal canal, which goes both extracranially into the parapharyngeal space anteriorly and intradurally into the cerebellomedullary fissure or premedullary area. You can have tumors ventrally located directly attached to the ventral foramen magnum, or we can have tumors anterolaterally located or ventrolaterally located, which is in the ventrolaterally area of the CP angle and as well as involving the jugular foramen also. So which is the best approach for these three kind of tumors? So I'll be discussing, taking examples, what will be the best approach for this one, or this case, or this case. Or cases like this which have both predominant both dumbbell, like you have a huge cervical lesion as well as a huge CP angle lesion. So you have lesions which are predominantly located intradurally, which have lesions which are predominantly located extradurally, and we have lesions which have located both intradurally and extradurally. So how do we decide which is the best approach for each of these cases? If you look at the textbook, there are many approaches. Anteriorly, you have transmaxillary, transoral, transsphenoidal. Then Zeram's approach, a transbasal approach, which Dr. Dugani explained. And you have posteriorly the midline suboccipital retrosigmoid and extreme lateral approach. And laterally, you have translabyrinthine, presigmoid, subtemporal approach. But then what we have to practice is a few of these approach so that patients have less complications if you are used to few approach, like as Dr. Patkar said, that you do the cases either transcortical or transcallosal, depending on what you are comfortable, and each one has its own advantages. So among the commonly used approaches for foramen magnum tumors are midline suboccipital, you have far lateral, and high cervical, extrapharyngeal or transcervical. I'll be discussing only far lateral and transcervical, and not midline suboccipital, as Dr. Mazumdar will be speaking on that. This is the first case, which is a predominantly located extradural tumor. This is a patient presented with a 12th nerve palsy, and this lesion was in the jugular foramen, having both intradural component as well as an extradural component. Lesions like this are best approached to a transcervical approach, where you have an incision in the higher cervical, an L-shaped incision in the neck area, like we do an ACDF, and expose the occipital, expose the anterobordal sternocleidomastoid. One has to sacrifice the facial vein and then expose the high C1, C2 area. Now, this is a trans-cervical approach. This is how we, as I explained, you have an L-shaped incision. The incision runs parallel to the mandible, as well as the anterior limb is parallel to the midline along the anteroborder of the sternocleidomastoid. One is to identify the digastric muscle, identify the 12th nerve, and identify the facial artery and the facial vein, sacrifice the facial vein. One is to sacrifice one muscle, one vein, that is the hyoid and stylopharyngeal muscle has to be cut. The facial vein has to be cut. Then one can access the area of the C1 and C2. And this is at the end when you expose the tumor at the level of prepharyngeal area. This is tumor capsule is excised, and this is the tumor bed. And this is the patient post-operatively, how it looks like. This is a patient with a post-op scan, so this area is filled with fat to prevent any CSF leak. Fortunately, the intradural part also came through that. Whereas lesions like this, which have both intradural and extradural component, we suspected it's a paraganglioma or a glomus jugular tumor that is highly vascular. Though extradural tumors, we can recommend radiosurgery, but with a huge CP angle, so we had to go in for surgery. We did a pre-surgery embolization. There are many approaches described, like Hugo-Fish approach, where usually they transpose the facial nerve. But when one does facial nerve transposition to expose the jugular foramen, the chances of post-operative facial paralysis is very high. And at the end of 1 year, 67% still have post-op facial palsy. Whereas if you do not transpose facial nerve, then the chances of post-op facial palsy is less. So we do not do the Hugo-Fish approach with translocation of the facial nerve, but we do a transjugular process approach. The jugular process is the part of the bone which is lateral to the condyle, the bone behind the condyle. Like this is the occipital condyle. Now, if you drill, this area is called retrocondylar area, whereas the part of the bone between the jugular foramen and the occipital condyle, this part is the jugular process. If you drill off this part of the bone, the whole jugular foramen can be exposed and the tumor can be removed from the jugular foramen, from the neck, as well as the intradural or the intracranial part. So this is the part, this is the jugular process, and this is the retrocondylar part of the bone. Now this is how the patient is positioned. This is how the patient is positioned, and so the incision is extended from a cervical, like from L shape, it is extended like retromastoid. So it's a S-shaped incisions where you can have an exposure of the retromastoid area as well as the parapharyngeal area. As I showed you, the high cervical, it's this, and if you extend the incision, it becomes a combined approach. Here, the first part is exposing the neck, the internal jugular vein, the external carotid artery, the internal carotid artery. One can see here that the internal jugular vein is filled with tumor. And then one has to do a retromastoid craniectomy as well as the mastoid drilling. So the whole sigmoid sinus is exposed, or skeletonize the sigmoid sinus. This is the drilling of the mastoid. The whole sigmoid sinus is exposed till the junction of the transverse sinus and the sigmoid sinus junction. And after that, the jugular vein is opened up in the neck and the tumor is delivered out of the jugular vein. If one remains within the walls of the jugular vein, the chances of damaging the lower cranial nerve surrounding it is less. So post-operative worsening of cranial nerve is less. So this is how the lower pole of the tumor is delivered. And then one goes to the upper pole, again open the sigmoid sinus, take out the tumor. Like I can see here that the sigmoid sinus is opened and the upper pole of the tumor is delivered out. The tumor usually will not be attached. There will be a good plane of cuvage and it can be delivered easily. And then the hemostasis is achieved by placing a clip and then finally suturing the anterior and posterior wall of the sigmoid sinus. And then the tumor from the upper pole and the lower pole is removed, and the part of the tumor from the jugular foramen also is removed. This is a diagrammatic representation where you can see here that the facial nerve is not transposed. One works from the posterolateral angle, exposing the sigmoid sinus, the jugular foramen, as well as the internal jugular vein in the neck. So it works posteromedial to the facial nerve and remove the tumor. So the facial nerve morbidity is reduced in this kind of approach. And then one can open the retrosigmoid dura and take out the tumor in the CP angle. And so this is the part of the tumor which is removed from the CP angle. And hemostasis is achieved by placing fat in the empty cavity of the jugular foramen. Now this is the video. Is the video seen? Is it breaking or seen?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
It is seamless.
Yeah. So
yeah, very nice.
This is the dissection of the neck. The jugular vein is being dissected. The common carotid and the ICA and the ECA are being dissected. We put a temporary clip on the ECA so that bleeding, though we have done embolization, but putting a temporary clip in the external carotid also helps reducing the embolization. Now this is the jugular foramen, which the tumor from the jugular foramen region is being taken out. Though it bleeds, it's easy to achieve hemostasis by just packing abdominal fat, which is wrapped in fibrilla, and one can also use Flosil in these cases. This is the upper part junction of the transverse and the sigmoid sinus. The wall is coagulated. First, a temporary clip is placed at the junction at the upper border of the sigmoid sinus. And then the sigmoid sinus is opened and the tumor is delivered. The upper pole of the tumor is delivered from the transverse sigmoid junction. And the sigmoid sinus is permanently ligated using sutures. Similarly, the jugular vein, one has to identify the lower pole of the tumor, and the jugular vein is ligated the lower end. And then the jugular vein is opened up to deliver the tumor. You can see here that the trick is one has to follow the wall, the inner wall of the jugular vein and the ulnar wall of the sigmoid sinus, so that one does not touch the lower cranial nerve surroundings. So you can see here, you follow the sigmoid sinus into the jugular foramen, into the internal jugular vein. So the chances of dissection of jugular lower cranial nerves is less, and so in turn you will have less of morbidity of lower cranial nerve palsy. And final hemostasis is either with Flosil or Surgiflo, whatever is available, and then with fat. Now this is the post-op scan. We still have a little bit of tumor. This is the fat what is seen, but we knew that some tumor is left around the internal carotid artery, which we are planning to give radiosurgery for that. But the predominant intracranial part has been removed. Now this is another case, again pre and post-op scan of the patient post-operatively. We have used this 9 cases of jugular foramen tumors, and out of that 4 were paraganglioma, 4 were schwannoma, and 1 was meningioma. All of them we did this combined approach, and this is what the results we have got. One can see here that there is no facial nerve palsy. Additional preoperative there was 2, and there is no additional post-op facial palsy using this transjugular process approach. And some of them also have recovery of the cranial nerve palsies. The third common approach is a far lateral approach. This is done for predominantly intradural lesions. Like this patient who had a lesion in the ventrally located foramen magnum meningiomas. Or this was a chondrosarcoma, actually uncommon case, ventrally located. Now there are many variations of far lateral approach like extreme lateral, transjugular process, transtubercular, transcondylar, retrocondylar. Now it is confusing which one to use among this approach. Now extreme lateral is whenever one has to mobilize the vertebral artery, it's called extreme lateral. Otherwise, it's called far lateral. So mobilization of vertebral artery was very common when Dr. Chandranath Sen and Professor Bernard George started the approach. But now with a lot of papers from Professor Goel also, they started that we do not need to do so much of extensive approach. One has to decide on the case-to-case basis. Now, whether to drill the condyle or do a suboccipital approach depends on the attachment of the tumor. If the attachment of the tumor is crossing the midline, one has to do either a condylar drilling. But if it's not crossing the midline, probably one can do with a retrocondylar or suboccipital approach. Now, drilling the condyle either 25% or 50% increases the exposure by 15 to 20 degrees. But then many times the tumor itself would have displaced the neural structure, so we don't have to drill the condyle. And it's only required in vascular lesions like aneurysms where the neural structures are displaced, not displaced. But in tumors, because it's displaced, many times we do not need to drill the condyle. And so we wrote an article of taking our cases that whether condylar resection was required, and in half of the cases we did not have to drill the condyle. Now these are the review of literature of many people who have analyzed in far lateral approach to decide whether we need to drill the condyle. The many people many people who believe in drilling the condyle, like in that they said that their complication rate was less, but people like Dr. Goel who didn't believe, they said that the advantage was that they had a higher leak in the CSF leak was less when you did not drill condyle. Cranial palsy deficits also was less. So though the initial papers had condylar resection they promoted, but the recent papers they do not. They optimize the extent of condylar resection. Condylar resection is usually required for extradural tumor or if a foramen damage is crossed the midline or aneurysms, but all other cases can be managed without condylar or retrocondylar approach. Now, one of the disadvantages of condylar resection is as long as you resect less than 50%, it's no problem. But if it's more than 50%, then it creates an unstable joint. Then one has to add up cervico-occipital fusion also. So one has to decide preoperatively whether it's worth resecting or not, and if it's not worth, probably one can avoid a fixation also, and it's better to avoid. Of all the 48 cases we had done in the past 15 years, most of the cases were meningiomas. So we had meningiomas, 52% of them, some of them jugular foramen, which I already explained. We had hypoglossal canal tumors, we had one vascular malformation, and we had 5 cases of C1, C2 neurofibroma. In our experience, we also included, we had done far lateral approaches for intraaxial lesions like this, which is a glioma of the brainstem or cavernoma of the medulla. So these cases also we use far lateral approach. So 4 of our intraaxial lesions we had done a far lateral approach. Now lesions like this, one can do a retrocondylar. One need not do because the attachment is not to the midline. So one can do a retrocondylar approach. For a retrocondylar approach, the position is in the lateral position. Usually we use a horseshoe type of incision like depicted in the picture. The patient is positioned in the lateral position, and one has to keep in mind that the brachial plexus has to be taken care both in the upper part and the lower part. The muscle and the skin, scalp, everything is reflected together, not in layer by layer as described by Professor Sen. The C1 and till C4 facet joint is removed so that one can have a good access anterolaterally. So the C1, C2 till the C4 spine. And after that, the C1 arch is removed. Small suboccipital craniectomy, retromasseter craniectomy is done till the sigmoid sinus is achieved, and the dura is open laterally. One can see here the C1 sensory root, and this is the dentate ligament. And once it remove the dentate ligament, we'll find the vertebral artery here, and this is the tumor. This is again another case of a foramen magnum tumor, very vascular tumor. Preoperatively, we thought it's meningioma or a paraganglioma. And same use, because it's predominantly intradural lesion, we did a hockey stick incision, dura open laterally. And the first thing what we see is the spinal accessory nerve. And this is, once the dentate ligament is already incised here, you can see here the vertebral artery entering the intradural space, but it is entering the tumor. The tumor was arising from the wall of the vertebral artery. So it turned out to be hemangioendothelioma of the vertebral artery. So we had to dissect the tumor from the artery, preserving the artery using a laser step by step. And finally, this is the vertebral artery, and this was attachment, the tumor was detached from the vertebral artery, and then tumor was removed in piecemeal. You can see here the vertebral artery course is seen here. And this is the end of tumor resection. This is the video. So here we did partial condylar resection. So as I explained, dentate ligament was cut, and then the spinal accessory is moved. Then the vertebral artery was identified. A plane between the vertebral artery and the tumor was dissected. It was a very vascular tumor, so we use thulium laser. It was decompression was done, but it was very vascular. Decompression was not easy, so we could only detach the vertebral artery from the tumor with the thulium laser. Without laser, I'm sure it would have taken a long time. And then tumor was removed in pieces. So this is another tumor of a C1, C2 neurofibroma. This is the pre-op scan. This is the per-op picture. And this is a post-op patient. This is another case of a cystic lesion. We use endoscope to look for at least this total, that there is no residual. This is a jugular foramen C, lower canal nerve, spica artery, that there is no residual left. So in conclusion, the approach depends on the size, the location and the extent of the tumor, the neurological status, the venous drainage, whether it's a dominant or it's a, like in paraganglioma, if the jugular vein, interjugular vein is obliterated, it becomes easy, and the tumor and brainstem surface. Now, how this is what we wrote in Neurology India, that the rationale for or the extent of condylar resection depends on the consistency of the tumor. If it's soft, we don't need, or extent of attachment. If it goes beyond the midline, one has to do. If there is an encasement of vertebral artery, again one has to do a drilling of the condyle. And if the tumor is not displaced, like in end-plaque meningioma or vascular tumor or aneurysms, when the neural tissue is not displaced, then one needs to do a condylar resection. So extensive bony resection is only required in aneurysms. Facial nerve morbidity can be reduced if one avoids facial transposition by doing a transjugular process approach. And condylar resection is always not essential, as I explained. In conclusion, extreme lateral lesion is for lower clivus lesions, transjugular is for jugular foramen tumors, transtubercular is for vertebral artery aneurysms, whereas transcondylar is for ventral foramen magnum tumors, and most of the tumors which are enterolaterally situated can be done with a retrocondylar or suboccipital approach. Thank you all for your attention.
Manas, thank you so much for the excellent talk. You made it look so simple. All of us, we know how difficult it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
It's open for questions. If anyone has any questions.
So, sir, there are two questions over here. So, one is